4 months ago, I had an interview. It wasn't an interview for a leadership position at a tech club, and I certainly wasn't being interviewed for a crime investigation. In fact, it was the most basic of interviews. I was one of the many people competing for a developer computer science job, and I was to chat with a Bloomberg recruiter. At first I thought, how bad could it be? All I had to do was answer their questions, ace their coding challenge, and I'll be done. However, life doesn't always turn out the way you want it to, and I completely botched it up. You don't even want to know the lengths I had to go. But fear not. After that interview, I decided I was going to change. Once my next interview came up, I destroyed it, and well, I'm the CEO now. Jokes aside, the reason I'm here today is to help you guys prepare for your first interview and what you can do to make that a great experience, unlike my first time. So, let's get started with a mock interview. This is Dale, and he's the recruiter for the interview. Nice to meet you, Mark. My name is Dale, and I'm your interviewer for today. Now, Dale hasn't seen the interview yet, so the first impression will matter a lot. This is the first factor. For each factor, we will go over 2 scenarios. This is the first scenario. In the first video, we see that the person shows up in casual clothes. His hair is disheveled. This gives a really bad impression to the interviewer because it seems like he doesn't care and he just woke up and rolled off his bed. Hello. In the second video, the person is dressed up in a dress shirt and he has combed his hair. He looks professional and ready to go. The second factor we have to consider is the initial greeting. Sup, interviewer? The first person says a really casual greeting that he would say to his friends. But in a professional setting, such as a recruiter where you're trying to get a job, you do not want to speak this way. Hi, my name is Mark and I am a 2A computer science student at the University of Waterloo. The second person greets the interviewer professionally and seems excited. The third factor to consider is body language. The first person is slumped, his eyes appear sleepy, and this gives out the impression to the interviewer that he just does not want to be there. This is bad because interviewers want to see someone who's motivated and ready to take on the challenges in the workplace, and if they are already unmotivated, if they're already tired in this interview, then they're definitely not a good choice for this position. Yeah, of course, I'm a very avid learner and I love learning about new technologies. The second person is attentive, he's sitting at the edge of the seat and his eyes are wide open. It seems like he's ready to learn and he's ready to take on any question that the interviewer asks him. The fourth factor to consider is camera quality and angle. If it appears as if you're not looking directly at the camera, then to the interviewer it will look like you're not even looking at him and you're just talking to empty air. You're not considering his feelings or anything at all. The second person has the camera placed directly in front of him and he's looking at him straight in the face. So it looks like the interviewee and the interviewer are both really engaged in the conversation that they are partaking. The fifth factor to consider is microphone quality and distance. What do you think about tabs versus spaces? Yeah, I would love to respond to that question. Thank you for taking. The first person has muffled audio and has random background noises in the background which distracts the whole conversation and interview. Personally, I'm a 2-space fan. I don't really like tabs or 4 spaces. I feel like they're too large, but 2 spaces is just perfect. The second person has clear, crisp audio, noise cancellation, and a generally quiet atmosphere to perform the interview in. This lets the interviewer become relaxed and also the interviewee to focus on his responses instead of what's happening on in the background. The next factor we consider is the STAR method when responding to questions. Give me an example of a project that you worked on. I just want to talk about how I made a couple of websites when I was young and I'm just really good at it, so you should definitely pick me. The first person explains how he made a website, he worked hard on it and it was cool, but there's not much after that. He just explains what he did but doesn't go into detail, nor does he explain the impact of what happened when he made the website. So the interviewer doesn't have a good idea of his project overall. So prior to the winter term, I actually wanted to learn a little bit of C because in the winter term I was going to be taking a computer science C course. And what better way than to learn a little bit of C by doing a project? So I decided to make something that was pretty challenging and I was trying to implement Git just in C. So I didn't really know a lot about Git at the time, so I had to learn a lot about Git internals. So how did committing work, how did hashing work, how to add files and stage files, all of the internals in that area, and how to operate it in a tree-like structure so that after version control is very efficient for memory reasons. After that was done, I started looking into programming in C, so memory management. And then after that, I started to combine both of them together. So combining the C portion with the Git internals portion to finally create a project called 9it, where you're able to do your own version control on your own system. In the end, it was a really cool project because I was able to learn a lot about version control and also how to distribute these packages to various Linux distributions like Debian, Gentoo, and more. The second person, however, uses the STAR method. He first describes the situation, then he describes the task at hand, what actions he took, and then the result that he did. This lets the interviewer follow along with the interviewee's steps through the whole process of his explanation, where he first explains the situation, how he dealt with the situation, what actions he took to fix that situation, and lastly, what happened as a result of that situation, letting the interviewer look more into how the interviewee performs in his daily workspace. The last factor to consider are questions for employers. Would you rather win $50,000 or let your best friend win $500,000? We might questions about the job. A really bad question would be an in general question that doesn't really consider the company. I know that your company has decided to start looking into compatibility in different countries. I was just wondering on your thoughts about that. The second person gives a more detailed question, asking the companies about specifics that they researched beforehand. This shows the interviewer that the interviewee has prepared a lot and is really adamant on working at their company because they're already interested in what the company has to offer and what they're working with. Now, if you don't have any questions, I'll be ending the interview now. You should receive a response in a couple of days. At last, we are finally done the interview. Most people stop at this step, but there's a lot more you can do to improve. After all, if you're a CS student, chances are you're going to be doing job interviews for the next 10 years. So, what can you do? You can always follow up with an email thanking the interviewer for how much you enjoyed the conversation. After all, recruiters aren't mindless robots and they definitely deserve some affection as well. On another note, write down all the questions the interviewer asked you. I find this to be super helpful because everything is fresh on my mind and these questions could be preparation for future interviews. From my experience, a lot of these general behavior questions are asked super often, so the more you know the interviewer, the better you'll succeed as an interviewee. Now, I get it, some of these tips I showed were pretty obvious, so you still may think to yourself, why should I practice? I'll just run some scenarios in my head and write down some answers onto a Google Doc, and I'll be good to go. Well, I'm not asking you to become a person who's super overpowered at interviews. Neither am I asking you to become a changed man after watching this video. What I'm really asking you, however, is to take interviews seriously because they are the deciding factor between you and a job. An interview is one of the things that will make or break a co-op, and any mock interview will help. That's all I have to say. Peace.